When my sister Brittany uninvited me from her wedding 3 months ago, I thought that was the worst betrayal our family could deliver. I was wrong, dead wrong, because yesterday, while cleaning out our deceased grandmother's attic, I discovered something that shattered everything I believed about my family. Hidden beneath decades of dust and memories, I found documents that revealed a financial conspiracy spanning 20 years. Documents that showed exactly why Brittany always got everything handed to her, while I struggled for every opportunity. The truth about our family's favoritism was far darker than sibling rivalry. It was systematic theft. Before we dive into how I uncovered this web of deception and got my sweet revenge, I want to know where you're watching from. Are you Team Justice or Team Forgiveness? Hit that like button if you believe karma always finds its way back, and subscribe because this family drama gets absolutely wild. Trust me, you won't see this plot twist coming. My name is Serafina, and until last week, I believed I was the family disappointment. While my sister Brittany sailed through life with our parents funding her college, her apartment, her car, and eventually her dream wedding, I worked 3 jobs just to afford community college. Every family gathering was a reminder of how Brittany was the golden child, and I was somehow lacking. The uninvitation came via text message, not even a phone call. "Hey Sarah, we had to cut the guest list. Hope you understand." 28 years of sisterhood reduced to a casual dismissal. When I tried calling Brittany, claimed budget constraints forced difficult decisions. Yet somehow her college roommates, distant cousins, and dad's golf buddies all made the cut. That wedding happened 2 weeks ago. The social media posts showed a lavish affair at the country club complete with ice sculptures and a 7-tier cake. Budget constraints my foot. But I swallowed the hurt and tried moving forward until Grandma Rose passed away suddenly last Monday. Grandma Rose had been my sanctuary growing up. When family dinners became interrogations about why I was not more like Brittany, Grandma would sneak me extra cookies and tell me I was special in my own way. Her death hit me harder than I expected, especially since I had been too busy working to visit her as much as I should have. Mom assigned me attic duty while she and Brittany handled the important funeral arrangements. Typical. Stick Serafina with the dusty, dirty work while the golden child gets to play hostess. But that attic assignment became the luckiest break of my life. I was boxing up old photo albums when I knocked over a filing cabinet hidden behind Christmas decorations. Papers scattered everywhere, and as I gathered them, one document caught my eye. It was a bank statement from 2004, with Grandma's name on it, but the amounts did not make sense. Grandma lived modestly on Social Security, yet this statement showed regular deposits of $5,000 monthly. My hands trembled as I dug deeper into the files. What I found made my stomach drop. There were dozens of documents spanning 2 decades, forged signatures on Social Security checks, redirected disability payments, falsified medical bills, and most damning of all, a power of attorney document that had been executed when Grandma was supposedly suffering from early dementia. But here was the kicker. The power of attorney was dated 6 months before Grandma's supposed dementia diagnosis, and it granted full financial control to my father, Richard Manning. Every signature looked identical, too perfect to be authentic across years of declining health. The paper trail was meticulous. Dad had been systematically draining Grandma's accounts for 20 years. Her Social Security checks her late husband's veteran benefits, her small pension from the textile mill, where she worked for 30 years, even the life insurance payout from Grandpa's death in 2003. All of it funneled into various accounts controlled by Dad. But the real gut punch came when I found the expenditure records. Column after column detailing where Grandma's money went. Brittany's college tuition, her sorority fees, her study abroad program, her post-graduation apartment, deposit her car down payment, and recently a massive transfer labeled wedding expenses. My sister's entire privileged life was built on stolen money. Money taken from our own grandmother. Money that should have ensured Grandma's comfortable retirement instead went to fund Brittany's Instagram perfect lifestyle. I calculated the total over $400,000 across 20 years. $400,000 that explained why I always felt like an outsider in my own family. It was not that I was lacking or disappointing. It was that I was not part of the conspiracy. The cruelest irony hit me as I read through medical records mixed in with the financial documents. Grandma never had dementia. Her doctor's notes consistently described her as sharp and alert right up until her final checkup. The dementia story was fabricated to justify why she supposedly could not manage her own finances. I thought about all those times Grandma would slip me $20 for lunch or insist on paying when we went out together. She was living on scraps while her own son and granddaughter lived like royalty off her stolen benefits. The woman who raised Dad after his own mother died, who babysat Brittany and me countless times, who never missed a birthday or graduation despite her limited income. My phone buzzed with a text from Brittany. "Can you handle the estate paperwork? I'm still recovering from the honeymoon." Even in death, Grandma was just another chore to delegate to disappointing Serafina. But this time, Serafina had ammunition. The funeral was scheduled for Thursday, giving me 3 days to decide what to do with this explosive information. Part of me wanted to confront Dad immediately to scream about 20 years of theft and lies. But a larger part, the part that had been overlooked and dismissed my entire life, wanted strategic revenge. I spent Tuesday night creating copies of everything. Bank statements, forged documents, medical records, expenditure logs. I organized them chronologically and cross-referenced each fraudulent transaction with corresponding deposits into Dad's accounts and subsequent transfers to Brittany's various expenses. Wednesday morning, I called my friend Marcus, who worked as a paralegal at a criminal defense firm. Without revealing family details, I asked hypothetically about elder financial abuse and fraud statutes. His answers were sobering felony charges, potential federal involvement due to Social Security fraud asset recovery, and minimum 5-year sentences. But I needed more than legal advice. I needed witnesses and credibility. That's when I remembered Mrs. Patterson, Grandma's next-door neighbor for 40 years. If anyone could testify to Grandma's mental clarity, it would be her. Mrs. Patterson was horrified when I showed her selected documents. "Your grandmother was sharp as a tack until the day she died," she confirmed. She was doing crossword puzzles and balancing her own checkbook last month. Dementia, absolutely not. She was worried about money lately, though kept saying things didn't add up. Armed with witness testimony, I made my next move. I contacted Grandma's bank directly claiming to be investigating financial irregularities as potential executor of the estate. The bank manager, Mr. Williams, agreed to meet Wednesday afternoon. Mr. Williams reviewed the documents with increasing alarm. "These signatures show clear evidence of forgery," he confirmed. "The handwriting analysis alone would be damning in court. But more concerning is the pattern of transactions. These monthly withdrawals coincide exactly with your grandmother's benefit deposits, often within 24 hours. He pulled up additional records I had not seen. "Look at this. Your grandmother tried to access her account in person multiple times over the past 5 years, but was told by your father that she was too confused to handle banking. She actually filed a complaint with our fraud department twice, but your father produced the power of attorney and medical documentation claiming dementia." My heart broke imagining Grandma trying to access her own money only to be dismissed and patronized by her own son. The systematic gaslighting was almost worse than the theft. Thursday morning arrived with perfect irony. The funeral was being held at the most expensive funeral home in town, paid for with Grandma's own stolen money. The viewing room was filled with elaborate flower arrangements, a mahogany casket, and catered reception that probably cost more than Grandma spent on herself in her final year. I watched Dad deliver a touching eulogy about Grandma's sacrifice and love for family. Brittany dabbed tears while wearing a designer black dress that probably cost more than Grandma's monthly grocery budget. The hypocrisy was nauseating. But I waited until the reception when family, friends, and extended relatives had gathered. That's when I requested a moment to share memories of Grandma. I want to talk about the woman who taught me the importance of honesty and hard work. I began looking directly at Dad and Brittany. Grandma Rose lived modestly her entire life, always putting family first. She saved every penny to ensure her own independence and dignity in her final years. I paused, watching their faces begin to shift from grief to confusion, which is why I was so surprised to discover while cleaning her attic that someone had been systematically stealing from her for 20 years. I pulled out a folder of documents. $400,000 in Social Security benefits, veteran benefits, and pension payments. All forged signatures, all fraudulent transactions, all funding a lifestyle Grandma never got to enjoy herself. The room went dead silent. Dad's face went pale while Brittany looked genuinely confused. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" Brittany whispered. "I'm talking about your college education, your apartment, your car, and your wedding being paid for with money stolen from our dying grandmother." I held up the bank statements. "I'm talking about power of attorney fraud and elder abuse. I'm talking about crimes that carry federal penalties." Dad tried to interrupt, but I continued. "I'm talking about why Grandma kept telling people her finances didn't add up, because they didn't. Someone was taking everything she had while convincing everyone she had dementia, which according to her medical records, she never had." Uncle James, Dad's brother, stood up. "Richard, please tell me this is not true." Dad's silence spoke volumes. Brittany was staring at him with growing horror, finally understanding the source of her charmed life. "The bank has confirmed forgery," I announced. "The signatures are fake, the medical justification is fabricated, and every transaction has been documented. Tomorrow morning, I'm filing reports with Adult Protective Services, the District Attorney's Office, and the Social Security Administration." That's when Dad finally found his voice. "Serafina, you don't understand the full situation. Grandma asked me to handle her finances. She was getting confused and—" "Stop." I held up Mrs. Patterson's written statement. "I have witness testimony from her neighbor of 40 years confirming Grandma's mental clarity until death. I have medical records showing no dementia diagnosis. I have bank records showing she tried to access her own money and was denied. The lies stop today." The funeral reception erupted into chaos as extended family members demanded explanations, and Brittany began crying, finally realizing her entire adult life was built on fraud. But this was only the beginning of my quest for justice. The week following the funeral became a whirlwind of legal consultations, family confrontations, and alliance building. Dad had retreated into damage control mode, hiring an expensive defense attorney and attempting to portray the situation as a misunderstanding between grieving family members. But I was just getting started. My first strategic alliance came from an unexpected source, Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, who had always questioned the family dynamics, but never had concrete evidence to support her suspicions. Linda was a retired accountant with forensic auditing experience, and she immediately offered to help analyze the financial documents. "I always wondered how your father could afford Brittany's lifestyle on his middle management salary," Linda confirmed as we spread documents across her kitchen table. "The numbers never made sense, but when I asked questions, I was told to mind my own business." Linda's professional eye caught details I had missed. "Look at these withdrawal patterns." She pointed to highlighted sections. "They're not random. Your father was sophisticated about this fraud. He waited exactly 30 days between large withdrawals to avoid triggering automatic bank alerts. He varied the amounts just enough to seem organic. This was premeditated, systematic theft." More damaging evidence emerged. Linda discovered that Dad had been claiming Grandma as a dependent on his tax returns for 15 years, while simultaneously draining her accounts. "Double fraud," Linda explained. "He was getting tax benefits while stealing her income. The IRS will be very interested in this." Our second major ally came through Mrs. Patterson's church connection. Reverend Thompson, who had visited Grandma regularly in her final years, was devastated to learn about the financial abuse. "Rose confided in me about money troubles," he revealed. "She said her son handled her finances, but she felt like she never had enough for basic needs. She was skipping medications to save money while someone was stealing her benefits." Reverend Thompson provided crucial testimony about Grandma's mental state and offered to connect me with other elderly parishioners who might have witnessed similar family dynamics. His moral authority in the community would be invaluable if this went to trial. But our most powerful ally emerged when Linda's forensic analysis revealed that Dad's fraud extended beyond Grandma's accounts. Cross-referencing public records, she discovered he had been systematically stealing from his employer's pension fund using similar forgery techniques. "Sarah, your father has been running multiple fraud schemes simultaneously," Linda explained during our third meeting. "The pattern analysis shows he's been embezzling from his company for at least 10 years. The amounts are smaller, but the frequency is higher. We're looking at potentially over $600,000 in total fraud." This revelation led us to contact Dad's employer anonymously. Within 48 hours, the company launched an internal investigation. By Friday, Dad was suspended pending a full audit. Meanwhile, Brittany was experiencing her own reckoning. She had been calling and texting constantly since the funeral revelation, initially defending Dad, but gradually accepting the overwhelming evidence. Our conversation that Friday night marked a turning point in our relationship. "Sarah, I need to know the truth," she said when she showed up at my apartment unannounced. "Did I really go through college on stolen money?" I showed her the documented transfers: $68,000 for tuition, $12,000 for sorority fees, $15,000 for study abroad, $8,000 for graduation celebration. Every major expense of her college years traced back to Grandma's accounts. "Oh my God," she whispered, covering her face. "I thought Dad was just good with money. I thought he was proud of my achievements. I never questioned where it came from because I trusted him." For the first time in our adult lives, I felt genuine sympathy for Brittany. She was a victim too, albeit a privileged one. "The wedding money too?" she asked. $47,000, I confirmed. "The final massive withdrawal was 2 weeks before your wedding. Grandma died broke while you had an ice sculpture." Brittany broke down completely. "I have to make this right. I have to pay it back somehow." "But Sarah, I spent everything. The honeymoon, the apartment furniture, the car payments. I don't have $47,000 sitting around." This was our crucial moment. I could continue punishing Brittany for unknowing participation, or I could recruit her as an ally against the real perpetrator. "I don't want to destroy your life, Brittany, but I won't let Dad get away with 20 years of elder abuse either." "What do you need me to do?" she asked. "I need you to testify about what you received and when. I need you to acknowledge that you never knew where the money came from, but that you benefited from it. And I need you to publicly support prosecution rather than enabling Dad's defense." Brittany agreed immediately. "He lied to all of us, Sarah. Grandma deserved so much better." By Sunday, our alliance included Linda's forensic expertise, Mrs. Patterson's witness testimony, Reverend Thompson's moral authority, Brittany's insider knowledge, and growing support from extended family members who were disgusted by the revelations. But our coalition faced a significant challenge Monday morning when Mom finally broke her silence. She had been avoiding the subject since the funeral, but Dad's suspension from work forced a family meeting. "Your father made mistakes," Mom announced during our tense kitchen table confrontation. "But destroying our family won't bring Grandma back. We need to handle this privately, maybe set up a payment plan to restore her accounts." I stared at Mom in disbelief. "Handle this privately. He committed federal fraud for 20 years. Grandma died thinking she was going broke while he stole everything she had." "Family loyalty means something, Serafina," Mom replied coldly. "Airing our private business in court helps no one." That's when I realized Mom might have known more than she admitted. Her defensive stance felt less like ignorance and more like complicity. Linda confirmed my suspicions Tuesday when she discovered joint account activity showing Mom had benefited from some of the fraudulent transfers. Your mother received several payments for household expenses that trace back to your grandmother's accounts, Linda revealed. She might not have known the original source, but she definitely knew Richard was spending money they could not account for through his legitimate income. Our alliance was about to be tested by family pressure and potential sabotage from within, but I was determined to see justice served regardless of who tried to protect Dad's crimes. The next phase would determine whether our coalition could withstand attack from our own family members. The betrayal came from the person I trusted most in our coalition. Linda, my forensic accountant aunt, who had been instrumental in uncovering the full scope of Dad's fraud, called me Tuesday evening with devastating news. "Sarah, I need to tell you something and you're not going to like it." Her voice trembled through the phone. "Richard contacted me yesterday. He's offering to make full restitution to Rose's estate if we drop the criminal charges and handle this as a civil family matter." My stomach dropped. "Linda, you told me yourself this was systematic elder abuse spanning 20 years. You can't seriously be considering—" "It's not that simple," she interrupted. "He's offering $600,000, which covers everything he took plus interest. If we pursue criminal charges, Rose's estate might never see a penny because he'll spend everything on legal defense." I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. Linda had been my anchor, the professional credibility that legitimized my accusations. Without her forensic analysis and testimony, my case became much weaker. "Linda, he committed federal crimes, Social Security fraud, elder abuse, embezzlement from his employer. You can't just write a check to make that disappear." "But I can choose not to cooperate with prosecutors," she replied quietly. And without my testimony and analysis, their case becomes circumstantial. The real blow came next. "Sarah, there's something else. I've been struggling financially since Tom's cancer treatment. The medical bills wiped out our retirement savings. Richard is offering to pay our debt in addition to the estate restitution." My heart shattered. Linda was not betraying me out of greed, but out of desperation. Dad had identified her vulnerability and exploited it masterfully. "How much does he owe you?" I asked. $87,000 in medical debt. We're facing bankruptcy, Sarah. I can't lose our house over principle when there's a practical solution that helps everyone." "Everyone? Except Grandma, who died broke while he lived like a king," I replied bitterly. "Rose is dead, Sarah. We can't change that, but we can still help the living." Wednesday morning brought worse news. Mrs. Patterson called to inform me that Dad had visited her with his attorney, claiming I had misinterpreted family financial arrangements and pressured elderly neighbors into false testimony. "I'm too old for legal battles, dear," Mrs. Patterson apologized. "My own children are worried about me getting involved in family disputes." By Thursday, our coalition was crumbling. Reverend Thompson remained supportive, but admitted his testimony was limited to general observations about Grandma's mental state. Without Linda's forensic analysis and Mrs. Patterson's specific witness accounts, the case was vulnerable. The final betrayal came from the person I least expected, Brittany. Friday afternoon, she requested a private meeting at a coffee shop downtown. Her demeanor immediately signaled trouble. "Sarah, I've been thinking about everything," she began nervously. "Dad made mistakes, serious mistakes, but destroying our family won't bring Grandma back." I recognized Mom's talking points immediately. "Brittany, we agreed to pursue justice together. You were horrified by what he did." "I was, and I still am. But I'm also thinking about Mom, about our family's reputation, about Dad's job, and our future family gatherings. If he goes to prison, Mom loses everything. The house, her health insurance, her retirement security. So Grandma's suffering means nothing as long as everyone else stays comfortable." Brittany's voice hardened. Dad is offering to pay back every penny plus penalties. He's willing to undergo financial counseling and submit to family oversight of his accounts. Isn't that better than destroying 3 generations for revenge? The word revenge stung because it revealed how our family had reframed my quest for justice. I was no longer the whistleblower exposing elder abuse. I was the vindictive daughter seeking revenge. Brittany, he stole $400,000 from our dying grandmother. He forged legal documents. He committed federal fraud. These are not mistakes. They're felonies. But pursuing prosecution guarantees everyone loses, she argued. Dad goes to prison, Mom loses her home, our family explodes, and Rose's money disappears into legal fees anyway. How does that honor her memory? I realized then that Dad's attorney had crafted a brilliant defense strategy. Instead of denying the crimes, they were reframing prosecution as family destruction versus practical resolution. They were making me the villain for refusing to accept financial settlement over criminal justice. He's also offered to pay for my debt consolidation and help with your student loans, Brittany added quietly. We could both start fresh. The bribe was subtle but unmistakable. Dad was buying back his family's silence with promises of financial relief. Everyone had their price, and he was methodically paying it. By Sunday, I sat alone in my apartment with boxes of evidence but no family support. Linda had formally withdrawn her cooperation. Mrs. Patterson was too fragile for testimony. Brittany was actively advocating for family reconciliation. Even Uncle James, who had initially been outraged, was now concerned about family unity. Dad's strategy was working perfectly. He had isolated me as the unreasonable family member choosing prosecution over reconciliation. The financial settlements he offered were real and immediate, while criminal justice seemed abstract and uncertain. Monday morning, I received a formal letter from Dad's attorney offering me $50,000 for pain and suffering in exchange for dropping all accusations and signing a non-disclosure agreement. The letter portrayed this as a generous gesture to heal family rifts caused by misunderstandings about financial arrangements. I had 48 hours to decide whether to accept the settlement or pursue prosecution alone without family support against a defendant who could afford expensive legal defense while I struggled to pay rent. For the first time since discovering the fraud, I genuinely considered giving up. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe practical family reconciliation was better than principled legal victory. Maybe I was choosing revenge over healing. But every time I wavered, I thought about Grandma dying broke while her own son lived off her stolen benefits. Some betrayals were too fundamental to forgive, even when forgiveness was financially convenient. Tuesday morning brought an unexpected phone call that changed everything. Ms. Manning, this is Detective Sarah Rodriguez with the Economic Crimes Unit. I understand you've been investigating potential financial fraud involving your deceased grandmother. My heart raced. Yes, but my family has been pressuring me to handle this privately rather than pursue criminal charges. I'm calling because your father's employer filed a formal complaint yesterday. Their internal audit discovered systematic embezzlement spanning a decade. When they ran background checks, your grandmother's name appeared in multiple suspicious transactions. We'd like to review your evidence as part of our investigation. This changed the entire dynamic. Criminal prosecution was no longer dependent on my family's cooperation. Dad's employer had independently discovered fraud and contacted law enforcement. My evidence would supplement an existing investigation rather than launching a new one. Detective Rodriguez arrived at my apartment Wednesday afternoon with a forensic accountant named James Mitchell. They spent 4 hours reviewing my documentation, and their reactions were everything I had hoped for from my family. This is textbook elder financial abuse, Detective Rodriguez confirmed. The pattern of fraud is sophisticated but well documented. Your grandmother was a victim of systematic exploitation by someone in a position of trust. James Mitchell was equally impressed by the evidence quality. The bank records alone establish clear intent to defraud. But combined with the forged power of attorney, falsified medical documentation, and witness testimony about your grandmother's mental competency, this becomes a slam-dunk prosecution. What about my family's attempts to settle privately? I asked. Private settlement doesn't preclude criminal prosecution for federal fraud, Detective Rodriguez explained. Elder abuse and Social Security fraud are crimes against society, not just against individual victims. Your family cannot consent to dismiss federal charges. This revelation was liberating. Dad's strategy of buying family silence was irrelevant to criminal prosecution. His attempts to isolate me were meaningless if law enforcement was pursuing charges independently. But Detective Rodriguez had even better news. We've been investigating several cases of elder financial abuse this year. Your father's pattern matches 2 other cases we're building. If you're willing to testify, your evidence could help protect other vulnerable elderly people from similar exploitation. For the first time since the funeral confrontation, I felt hopeful about achieving real justice, rather than just family drama resolution. Thursday brought another crucial ally, Sarah Coleman, a social worker with Adult Protective Services, who had been assigned to investigate Grandma's case posthumously. Sarah had extensive experience with elder abuse and immediately recognized the sophisticated nature of Dad's fraud. Most financial abuse cases involve gradual asset depletion by family members, Sarah explained during our meeting. But your father created an elaborate legal framework to justify theft. The falsified power of attorney, fabricated medical documentation, and systematic isolation of your grandmother from her own finances represent advanced financial predation. Sarah's investigation had uncovered additional evidence I had missed. Your grandmother contacted our office twice in her final 2 years, expressing concerns about financial irregularities. Both times your father intercepted our follow-up communications and provided documentation claiming she was experiencing dementia-related confusion. So she knew something was wrong and tried to get help. Absolutely. Your grandmother was actively seeking assistance but was systematically blocked by the person exploiting her. This demonstrates consciousness of wrongdoing and deliberate obstruction of protective services. Sarah's testimony would be devastating at trial because it proved Dad was not merely taking advantage of confusion, but actively preventing intervention when Grandma sought help. Friday delivered the most satisfying news yet. Detective Rodriguez called to inform me that Dad's employer had pressed criminal charges for embezzlement. He was arrested this morning on state charges. The federal charges related to your grandmother's case will be filed next week. Dad's arrest sent shockwaves through our extended family. The same relatives who had pressured me to accept private settlement were now demanding to know why I had betrayed family loyalty by cooperating with law enforcement. But I had one more powerful ally emerging: Dr. Patricia Reynolds, Grandma's longtime physician who had been horrified to discover that her medical records were falsified to support fraudulent power of attorney claims. I never diagnosed your grandmother with dementia or cognitive impairment, Dr. Reynolds confirmed when Detective Rodriguez contacted her. The medical documentation claiming mental incompetency is completely fabricated. Rose Manning was mentally sharp until her death. Dr. Reynolds was particularly angry about professional implications. Someone forged my signature on documents I never created, claiming medical opinions I never rendered. This represents fraud against medical licensing authorities in addition to elder abuse. Her testimony would demolish Dad's defense strategy completely. Without legitimate medical justification for power of attorney, his entire financial control over Grandma was fraudulent from inception. By Sunday, our prosecution team included Detective Rodriguez's criminal investigation, James Mitchell's forensic accounting, Sarah Coleman's protective services documentation, Dr. Reynolds' medical testimony, and Reverend Thompson's character witness accounts. But the most unexpected ally appeared Monday morning: Marcus Webb, a private investigator hired by Dad's employer to trace embezzled funds. Marcus had discovered that Dad had been using sophisticated money laundering techniques to hide stolen assets across multiple accounts. Your father established a network of shell accounts to obscure the paper trail, Marcus explained. But financial forensics revealed the ultimate destination of most stolen funds: luxury purchases for your sister and lifestyle expenses for your parents. Marcus had evidence of specific purchases: Brittany's car, her apartment security deposits, her wedding venue, even her honeymoon trip to Italy. Every major expense in your sister's adult life traces back to either your grandmother's accounts or your father's employer's pension fund. This evidence would prove that Dad's fraud was not impulsive desperation, but calculated lifestyle enhancement at the expense of vulnerable people who trusted him. As we prepared for prosecution, I realized that seeking justice had attracted allies I never expected while revealing the true character of family members I thought I knew. Real support came from strangers committed to protecting vulnerable people, while family loyalty turned out to be conditional on financial convenience. The truth was about to be exposed in ways that Dad's money could not control or manipulate. The trial began 6 months later, and watching Dad's defense strategy crumble was more satisfying than any revenge fantasy I could have imagined. His expensive attorney had no response to the mountain of forensic evidence, medical testimony, and witness accounts we presented. Detective Rodriguez's opening statement laid out 20 years of systematic elder abuse with devastating precision. Richard Manning did not simply take advantage of an elderly woman's confusion. He created an elaborate criminal enterprise designed to steal every penny of his mother's life savings while convincing everyone, including his victim, that she was too mentally impaired to manage her own affairs. Dr. Reynolds' testimony was particularly damaging. I never diagnosed Rose Manning with dementia or cognitive decline. The medical documents claiming she was mentally incompetent are complete fabrications. Someone forged my signature and created false medical records to justify financial exploitation. Brittany had initially refused to testify, clinging to hopes of family reconciliation. But when Dad's attorney tried to claim she was an innocent beneficiary who believed the money came from legitimate family wealth, she realized her silence would make her appear complicit. Her testimony was heartbreaking and powerful. I thought my father was proud of my achievements and wanted to support my education. I never questioned where the money came from because I trusted him completely. Learning that my entire adult life was funded by money stolen from my own grandmother has been devastating. The prosecution presented evidence showing Dad had stolen over $600,000 across 2 decades from Grandma's accounts, plus an additional $300,000 from his employer's pension fund. Nearly $1 million in total fraud used to fund a lifestyle he could never afford legitimately. But the most damning testimony came from Sarah Coleman, the Adult Protective Services investigator. Rose Manning contacted our office twice seeking help with financial irregularities. Both times, Richard Manning intercepted our communications and provided falsified medical documentation claiming his mother was experiencing dementia-related confusion. He systematically prevented his victim from accessing protective services. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts: elder financial abuse, Social Security fraud, mail fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and obstruction of protective services. The federal judge sentenced Dad to 12 years in prison with full restitution required. Mom filed for divorce within a week of sentencing. I cannot stay married to someone who stole from his own mother, she announced, finally finding moral clarity when social pressure shifted against defending Dad's crimes. But the personal consequences extended far beyond prison time. Dad's conviction made national news as an example of sophisticated elder financial abuse. His mugshot appeared in articles about family betrayal and financial exploitation of vulnerable seniors. The public humiliation was complete and permanent. Brittany underwent her own reckoning. She voluntarily returned wedding gifts, sold her car, and moved into a modest apartment while working 2 jobs to begin repaying money she had unknowingly received from fraud. I cannot enjoy anything that came from Grandma's suffering, she explained during one of our weekly coffee meetings. Our relationship transformed completely through this crisis. The sister who had dismissed me as family disappointment became my closest ally in processing trauma and rebuilding our lives. "I understand now why you always seemed angry at family gatherings," she admitted. "You saw the unfairness even when I was too privileged to notice." We established new family traditions honoring Grandma's memory. Every month, we volunteer at the senior center where she used to play bingo. We started a small scholarship fund for first-generation college students using money recovered from Dad's accounts. Most importantly, we created space for honest conversations about family dynamics we had previously ignored. Linda eventually apologized for her betrayal, explaining that fear of financial ruin had clouded her judgment. "I was wrong to prioritize my immediate crisis over Rose's justice," she acknowledged. "Desperation made me compromise values I thought were unshakable." I forgave Linda because I understood desperation. But I also learned that crisis reveals character, and some people will sacrifice principles for convenience when pressure mounts. Our relationship recovered, but changed, built on realistic expectations rather than blind trust. The most unexpected family growth came through connections with other elder abuse survivors. Through court proceedings, I met families who had experienced similar betrayals. We formed a support network that felt more authentic than biological family relationships built on secrecy and financial manipulation. Marcus Webb, the private investigator, became an unexpected friend and mentor. "You showed remarkable courage pursuing justice despite family pressure," he told me after sentencing. "Most people choose family peace over principle. Your grandmother would be proud." Dr. Reynolds invited me to speak at medical conferences about recognizing elder abuse signs and protecting vulnerable patients from family exploitation. Turning our trauma into education for healthcare professionals felt like meaningful purpose emerging from tragedy. 6 months after Dad's sentencing, I received a letter from another family dealing with similar elder abuse. They had read about our case and were seeking advice about pursuing prosecution despite family pressure to handle matters privately. Helping them navigate law enforcement resources and witness preparation felt like Grandma's suffering was preventing similar tragedies for other families. Today, 2 years later, I have a chosen family built on shared values rather than blood relations. Brittany and I are closer than ever bonded by surviving betrayal and choosing growth over bitterness. Our friend group includes other survivors, supportive professionals like Detective Rodriguez and Sarah Coleman, and people who prioritize integrity over convenience. I think Grandma would approve of the family we have built from honesty rather than hierarchy, justice rather than loyalty, and authentic connections rather than financial manipulation. Her stolen money was recovered and donated to elder advocacy organizations, ensuring her suffering contributes to protecting other vulnerable seniors. The most important lesson I learned is that seeking justice, even when family opposes it, can reveal who truly deserves space in your life. Real family supports your principles rather than pressuring you to compromise them for social convenience. Has your family ever pressured you to stay quiet about wrongdoing for the sake of keeping peace? Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was living a lie funded by hurting others? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below about times when doing the right thing meant standing alone against family pressure. If this story resonated with you about the importance of protecting vulnerable people even when it costs family relationships, please hit that like button to help other viewers find these discussions about justice and accountability. Subscribe for more real-life stories about choosing integrity over convenience, and share this video with anyone who has faced similar decisions about family loyalty versus moral principles. Thank you for listening to my family's journey from betrayal to healing. Remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their harmful behavior even when everyone else chooses silence over justice. Stay strong in your convictions, Protect the vulnerable people in your community and never let anyone convince you that family loyalty requires compromising your values.